The 2023 FNCS Invitationals is right around the corner, and we'll be seeing 75 of the best duos in the world compete for $4 million at LAN. But with so many teams going, who really has the best chance to win? Today, we'll be going over some of the best teams in each region and looking at their accomplishments in this chapter to help determine who will win the FNCS Invitationals. Starting this list off from EU has to be one of the most dominant duos in the world, and we have Tayson and Murstache. With Tayson being one of the most decorative Fortnite players, getting 5 FNCS wins and being the highest online earned player, matched with the insane fighting skills of Murstache, they are an extremely scary duo. Starting off this chapter, they would officially duo for the first time, and their first season together, they would end up winning FNCS after the tournament came down to just 1 point. And in the next season, they would continue to play extremely well, but would end up getting a second place right after Quazivoo, who ended up winning 6 out of 12 games. So it was pretty hard to beat that. But this last season, they would drop the ball a little bit and end up getting 15th. And this seemed to mainly happen just because they didn't really grind the game as much, which is pretty obvious when you look at Tayson's name, which I believe is a League of Legends reference. The duo also seems to have gotten into a little drama and beef with each other, which may have affected their performance. However, if they have been grinding this season and can put away their differences, I could see them easily winning. But next, we need to talk about a team who has already won the Invitationals before in the prior year, and that's Kami and Seti. After one of the most insane finishes to a tournament in gaming history, Kami and Seti beat out Quazivoo, winning the first official LAN event since the World Cup. And they really impressed everyone in the process, coming up with new strategies nobody has ever seen before, and moving from mainly a low ground dominant playstyle to being able to do everything and anything, and that's what makes them so consistent. But the first season afterwards, they would end up underperforming, getting 23rd. But in that next season, they would make a comeback, placing 5th, and in this most recent season, place 4th. And Kami would also go on to win that Gamers 8-0 build tournament. But even though they managed to get 2 top 5s, this duo only really cares about winning and are arguably the most passionate duo to play the game, and they'll do whatever it takes to become the back-to-back champs. We've mentioned Quazivoo twice before, so of course they're on this list. Unlike Kami and Seti's playstyles, this duo is known as one of the best teams in the world at playing height. But because of this, the first season of Chapter 4, where Shockwave hammers were in the game, it made it extremely hard to do well. However, they still managed to get an impressive 4th place. And in that next season, they would make FNCS history by winning 4 out of the 6 games on the first day, then winning another 2 on the second day, with 5 of those wins being back-to-back. And who would have guessed that all of these wins would be on height? After one of the best seasons in Fortnite history, you'd think the next one they'd continue to do well, but that didn't happen. After attempting to change their drop spot during the FNCS, they would end up just not doing well, and in the end, they wouldn't even make the grand finals, which made one of the biggest upsets in Fortnite competitive history. But it seems now that they've learned from their mistakes and are grinding to make sure nothing like this happens again, and instead of leaving the Invitationals with a 2nd place this time, hopefully they'll win. The last team I'll mention from EU is Malibuca and Thomas HD.
It's Fortnite time.
Now, neither of the players in this duo have won an FNCS before, but they've been extremely close many times, and they're known as some of the best players regardless. In the first season they played together, they would end up placing 2nd just behind Tayson and Murstache. For the next season though, they would end up getting contested, but even then they managed to pull off one of the most impressive comebacks, getting a 3rd place overall. However, in the most recent FNCS, even though they were uncontested this time, they still underperformed, ending in 11th. But they proved before that they can do well even when contested, so we'll just have to see if they can do just that. Let's now move on to a very underrated region in Brazil, with the most recent winners from FNCS, King and Phaser. King throughout his career has had many impressive accomplishments and is actually one of the only players from a small region to win over $1 million from tournaments. However, he and Phaser only started playing in season 2 of this chapter, but they proved quickly that they are very good. In fact, just like Quazivoo, they managed to win 6 out of the 12 games in the grand finals. But unlike Quazivoo, they would continue to show how good they are, winning that next FNCS. And coming into the FNCS Invitationals with back-to-back FNCS wins, they're looking really good. Our next team, also from Brazil, would be PHZen and Kitos. This duo has been playing together for a very long time, since Chapter 3's start, and they actually played the 2022 FNCS Invitationals together. And in it, they would prove to the world that they are one of the best after getting an impressive 5th, the highest placing team from a smaller region. And in the first season of this chapter, they would go on and win it, truly showing how good they are. And in the season after, they would get a 4th, but in the latest FNCS, they would place 10th. But after proving how good they can play on their own region and at LAN before against the best in the world, we'll just have to see if they can prove it again. The first NA team we'll bring in for this video has to be Aers and Canada. This is another duo that has been playing together since chapter 3, and in the first season of this chapter, they would start off extremely strong by placing second overall. But in the next season, they would end up getting contested, yet they still managed to get a 12th place finish. But it would be in this most recent season where they would finally get that win they've been striving for. And fun fact, Kanata is one of the only players to qualify for every FNCS in the world. But one problem they will face in the Invitationals is that they might be going up against Thomas HD and Malibuka off spawn. Definitely not the team you'd like to face off against. And the fact that in an interview after their FNCS win, he would go on to say this.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. We're not winning Invitational. It's impossible. It's actually impossible. I will not lie to you. You know what I'm saying? So I won't lie to you guys about that.
However, out of all the teams in NA, they're still one of the best. And if you want to learn more about their story and how they won FNCS, you can check out the video I made after this one. Another team from a small region that I believe will do well is Pipo and Zagu. Now, this duo both played in the last Invitationals, but with separate teammates, and unfortunately, they didn't play the best. But this season after, they would end up playing together for the first time and winning. And in season 2, they would end up getting a second place. But in this last season, some weird things happened. Now, for some reason, after getting a first and second in FNCS, they decided to split and play with different teammates. But neither of them ended up placing that well in the last grands. Now, I really don't have any idea why they did this since I don't follow the Asia competitive scene, so if you know, please comment below. However, they've both had experience at LAN and showed that they are some of the best Asia has to offer, so only time will tell. Circling back to NA, another team that has shown that they're some of the best would have to be Buka and Threats. Now, like our prior team, they both competed in the last FNCS Invitationals, but with different teammates. And with Buga being the World Cup winner, he is one of the most decorated players when it comes to LAN experience. Now, both of them did have a disappointing performance last year, with Buga getting 36th and Threats getting 29th, but in the last 2 seasons, they've shown that it has what it takes to do well. Now, unlike most of the teams on this list, they haven't played this whole chapter together, only starting to duo in season 2, but in that season, they would manage to get a 5th, and in the last FNCS, they pulled off a 2nd, getting extremely close to winning. So with the experience of Buga and cheater level aim from Threats, they're looking better than ever. OC is next up, and so far they don't have the best track record for LAN events. However, the best duo in my opinion that is competing is Alex and Worthy. Now this duo is definitely an interesting one. Their first season playing together would actually be the last FNCS where they managed to pull off a 2nd place. But prior to that, Worthy would place 5th and 3rd. Now this team is very good at fighting, and with both of them being FNCS winners, they're looking like OCE's best shot. Next, we have another NA team in Yamza and Rise. Over the course of this chapter, they've been arguably the most consistent team in the region, from placing well in every Cash Cup to the FNCS Grand Finals. The first season in this chapter, they would get a solid 3rd place, with the next season being a 4th, and the most recent one getting a 3rd. Even though none of these placements were a win, they were definitely in contention for it every single time. And if things went a little bit differently, they could have been the back-to-back-to-back FNCS champs. However, even without getting that win, it wouldn't surprise me to see if they get it soon. Our last team from a small region for this video would be CalGamer and 7mans from the Middle East. They only started playing together in season 2, but in that season, they managed to beat out all of the other players and come out with a win. And in season 3, they would do the same thing, becoming the back-to-back champs. And after some unfortunate circumstances last Invitationals with some of the Middle East players not being able to compete, therefore not giving them as much representation, hopefully this year will be different. For our last duo of this video, we'll bring it back around to NA with Cold and Acorn. Both of these players have had an insanely good career so far, and they've both went to last year's Invitationals and managed to place pretty well, with Acorn getting a respectful 13th and Cold coming in 3rd after an extremely impressive performance. And in the season after, they would decide to duo with each other for the first time, and this seemed to be an extremely good decision, since they would go on to win in that season. But the next 2 seasons afterwards, they would only manage to pull off a 6th in both of them. Which isn't bad, but to them, if they're not first, they're last. But interestingly enough, this duo actually wanted the split. After their poor performance in the 2nd season, Cold wanted to try out with a new teammate, and a bunch of drama ensued. But soon they would find out that they missed the date to send into the forums saying him and Cold were no longer going to play together, so this obviously caused some turmoil in the duo, and the vibes just weren't always there when playing. However, it seems like they aren't taking things too personally, so hopefully they can put aside their differences and get their first LAN win. Now, I've mentioned many duos throughout this video, but not nearly all of them, so if you think there's a duo I haven't mentioned that can win, please comment below. But in my opinion, I gotta put down Kami and Seti becoming the back-to-back invitational champs. Now, they haven't performed insanely well in the recent FNCSs, but their consistency has always been one of their strong suits. As well as that, we've seen that last year, they put the time in to come up with new strategies in order for them to win. And with the prize pool this year being double of last year, they'll definitely be putting in the time. But if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe. Consider checking out some of my other videos, and I hope you all have an amazing rest of your days. Peace out.